Welcome to the Colombian Code, El Código Colombiano. Yeah, today we're going to talk business. Now, if you do business in Medellin, then you'll probably recognize our location. Yes, La Cámara de Comercio, or Chamber of Commerce, is a place most business owners will spend a lot of time and get to know fairly well. And since we're here, what better place to discuss the basics you should know when starting a business in Colombia? Now, this is really for the code disciples who want to do business in the Colombian market. And if you already do business here and don't have some of these things in place, then you may want to go back and fix them now so you don't run into any issues later on. And if you're a tax resident, due to the amount of time you spend here, meaning more than 183 days, then you too may want to pay attention to what I'm about to say, as it may save you some time and money. So, to break it all down, these are the 6 basic steps that I take when starting a new business in Colombia. Remember, the code disciples know better. I'm not here to teach the fundamentals of how to create a business in the Cámara de Comercio. You can easily get that information online. I'm giving you business strategy on how I create companies. Because as someone who's created and actually runs multiple businesses here, after a while, you start to develop a system of how to get things done. So, the very first thing I do when starting a business is number one, due diligence. That's right, do your due diligence. This is when I do my initial investigation to determine, is there a viable business here? What does the market look like? Will I need any kind of licensing or certification? What about zoning? You don't want to start a business only to find out you need a special permit that you're not going to get because of zoning. Seen that one before. So once I've done my due diligence and determined that I have a viable business that I want to move forward with, my next step is number two, to hire a good accountant. Notice I didn't just say any accountant, but a good accountant. A good accountant can really help you stay out of trouble in business and save you money. In fact, in all my years' experience doing business here, I'd say choosing an accountant is one of the most important decisions you will make for your business. For me, it's very much a personal choice as much as it is one based on merit and experience, because the accountant is someone you're going to be communicating and working with on a regular basis. And personally, I like to work with people I like, vibe, and get along well with. Now, the good thing is, accountants are plentiful here. But as with anything, good people are not easy to come by. So, how do you find someone good? Well, one way is to search online, but I also recommend referrals. And pretty much everyone here knows an accountant. So, referrals are usually a good place to start. Once I've done my due diligence and hired a good accountant, and I'm actually ready to start doing business, that's when I proceed to the next step in my process, which is number three, to actually file the corporate constitution. This is when you formally create the company in the Cámara de Comercio based on the corporate structure that you select. This will create your NEET or tax ID number and RUT or Registro Único Tributario. So you can start generating factura electrónica, which will help with things like your deductions come tax time. And that good accountant you hired back in step two will assist you with these processes. Once I have my company formally constituted, my next step is number four, to open whatever bank accounts I'll need for the business. This will normally require you to file certain financials with the bank, which, once again, that good accountant you hired back in step two will help you submit. Now, I should also mention that opening a bank account here has never been a simple process in my experience. So have patience as things sometimes happen here at their own pace. And there's actually a lot more to know about banking here, but we'll talk more about that in the next episode. Once I've opened my business bank account, my next step is number 5, to file for any certifications and branding I'll need. So, for example, if you're running a hotel or hostel, or basically anything to do with tourism, you'll need to register and maintain the RNT or Registro Nacional de Turismo. If you're running a restaurant, then you'll need to pass sanitation, which means you'll be dealing with INVIMA, which actually stands for Instituto Nacional de Vigilancia de Medicamentos y Alimentos, which no one ever says or likely even remembers. Everyone just says INVIMA. And if I have a brand that I want to trademark, this is when I'll make that filing with the SIC, or Superintendencia de Colombia. Now, a trademark is only really necessary if you have a brand that you want to protect. And if that's you, then you'll want to stay vigilant so what happened to Frisbee in the $1 billion steal doesn't happen to you. Now, I should mention, you can do all these filings on your own. In fact, I still do all my filings myself. And one of the benefits is you get to know the systems and how things work. So I don't have to ask or depend on anyone else for assistance if I don't want to. But I also understand a lot of people would rather just not be bothered and pay someone to do filings for them. To each their own. But the only filings I don't do myself are the ones for the DIAN, as I prefer to let my accountants handle those. Which brings us to the final step in my business startup process. Number 6, taxes and bookkeeping. Two things that most people tend to dislike. But this is an ongoing process that starts the moment you file the corporate constitution with the Cámara de Comercio, as you're required to file taxes, which include things like IVA and Declaración de Renta, with the DIAN every year, regardless of whether you generate any revenue or not. You're also required to pay the fees and renew your corporate charter with the Cámara every year. All the more reasons why I always wait until I'm actually ready to start doing business before I formally file to create the company with the Cámara de Comercio. The other ongoing requirement is to maintain your libros, or corporate books, which consist of your corporate meetings and minutes. Now, some people tend to overlook or neglect these, or look forward to them with about the same enthusiasm as a visit to the dentist. But in most any situation, one of the first things people will want to see are your books. So it's better to maintain and update them at least once a year, which you can do with your annual meetings. Trust me when I say you definitely want to stay on top of these things, because we've all seen horror stories where people don't do what they should and end up in a mess or with a huge bill from the DIAN, essentially putting them out of business. But the code disciples know better. So subscribe and follow the code. Till the next episode. Salute.